Major escalation by Chinese fighter jets. Beijing hits out at Nancy Pelosi after her Taiwan visit. China calls her troublemaker-in-chief.
Nancy Pelosi classified as troublemaker-in-chief in the world.
Beijing warns Washington, D.C., says we are a nuke power.
Any war between China and the United States will escalate right out of control into a nuclear war, and the mankind will look into the eyes of Armageddon.
China prepares to rain fire around Taiwan. Will China go to war? That's our top focus on India First. The situation is already red hot. The dragon is breathing fire after Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan, despite Chinese President Xi Jinping's warning, and this is being seen as a major loss of face for the Chinese president. China is now threatening not only to blockade Taiwan, but also speed up, including militarily, the reunification or occupation of Taiwan. We get you much more on this big story. I'm Gaurav Sawant as always. Let's get started with the headlines on India First. Congress says it is under siege after Enforcement Directorate seals Young Indian Private Limited's office at the Herald House in the national capital. Delhi police deployment increased outside Rahul Gandhi's residence. Political showdown over Tiranga Yatra. BJP hits out at the opposition for not participating in the rally. Former Bengal Minister Parth Chatterjee and his close associate Arpita Mukherjee's ED custody extended till the 8th of August. India Today investigations reveal how fake appointment letters were issued to scam aspirants. Amir Khan and Kareena starrer Lal Singh Chadda courts controversy again. Kangana accuses Amir Khan of orchestrating negativity around him for publicity. Nancy Pelosi leaves Taiwan after a 15-hour-long pit stop, hails the island nation's resilience, China's bluster fully exposed.
43 years ago, with the Taiwan Relations Act, America made a bedrock promise to always stand with Taiwan.
There's been a major escalation by China. Beijing has launched 27 fighter jets, with some crossing the median line between mainland China and Taiwan, and this is being seen as a major escalation after Nancy Pelosi's visit. The Chinese aircraft that crossed the median included 6 J-11 air superiority fighter jets of People's Liberation Army's Air Force, 5 J-16 multi-role fighter jets and 16 Su-30 air superiority fighters, and that's the flight path. Taiwan's put out images of the flight path of these 3 fighter jets. That's the median line between mainland China and Taiwan. That's the Taiwan Strait, and these aircraft, they crossed that median line before they turned around, and this is being seen as an escalation. What does this result in? The Chinese fighter jets were warned on radio by Taiwan the moment they crossed that median line between mainland China and Taiwan. Taiwan also dispatched its own fighter jets to intercept these aircraft, but before the interception could take place, the Chinese aircraft had turned around and gone back towards China. But Taiwan says air defense missiles were also deployed. This is the information that's been given out by the Ministry of Defense in Taiwan. I quickly now want to cut across to India Today's senior executive editor Shiv Arur, who joins me for more on this major escalation that has taken place after Nancy Pelosi's visit. Shiv, a deliberate escalation by China after Nancy Pelosi had left the place, and are these violations, Shiv, only set to increase in the days and weeks ahead?
Gaurav, this is very clearly China's attempt, to ratchet up tensions, to, continue and maintain that intimidatory atmosphere around Taiwan. Remember, they've already started naval drills around the Taiwan island, but these air drills where the involvement of 27 combat aircraft, we last checked, going very close to crossing and then returning from the median line, which is the midpoint of the Taiwan Strait, is being seen as a very, very specific escalation. There are no mistakes over here, because remember, there is a tacit understanding between China and Taiwan about that median line. No crossings should be happening. Remember, these naval drills already in a way violate that tacit understanding. But air power, as you well know, Gaurav, is a completely different ball game, because air power, always implies the possibility of the extension of force on the Taiwanese mainland. So this is clearly an escalation. Everything that China has been saying so far has been pointed towards them talking about a retaliation, them talking about cranking up actions to remind the world that they meant business as far as consequences for Taiwan and the United States are concerned. Remember that encircling Taiwan, even with these military drills, could lead to a larger conflagration as far as a blockade is concerned. But the crossing of aircraft over the median line, and not just small little air intrusions, but 27 aircraft, is definitely a big move by China. And it
First
carries
it was
a great deal of
20,
meaning.
21, now 27. Shiv, for the moment, many thanks. And we now get you an India Today mega exclusive. The dragon is breathing fire. The dragon has issued a nuclear threat. Hear this straight from the horse's mouth. Beijing's direct threat to Taiwan. India Today now gets you an exclusive interview with Victor Gao. He is a strategic affairs expert. Incidentally, he was also the interpreter for Chinese Communist Party's leader Deng Xiaoping. Listen in to Beijing's voice that says Nancy Pelosi destroyed trust between China and the United States of America, and China now warns that consequences must be borne by Taiwan. Geeta Mohan in conversation with Victor Gao.
There's a lot of layers when it comes to the Taiwan-China relations. What are the red lines over here that you think China considers having been breached, because of which we are seeing the kind of statements that are coming in from Beijing and the kind of mobilization that we're seeing through videos that have been put out?
Thank you very much for having me. You know for sure that Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House of Representatives in the United States, who ranked at number 2 in line of succession, next only to the Vice President of the United States, visited Taiwan these couple of days, and China gave warning before her visit, asking her not to do the visit because it would be considered as a serious violation of the One China policy. Now, Nancy Pelosi made the trip despite of the counseling against it by US President Joe Biden, against the counseling of the US military. So this is serious stuff. She did not go to Taiwan as a tourist. She did not make all these meetings as an old grand lady in her own capacity. No, she was wearing the official hat. She was leading a large congressional delegation, and she was promoting Taiwanese independence. She was holding Taiwan out as an independent sovereign country, separate from China. This is the taboo of the taboo and the red line of the red line as far as China is concerned. So China is fully justified to feel very indignant about it, and the Chinese people are completely behind the Chinese government, because we want to achieve the national reunification. In the world, there is only one China, and Taiwan is part of China, and more than 181 countries in the world, including the United States, all the NATO members, all the EU members, all the OECD members, and great countries like India, for example, acknowledge that there is only one China, Taiwan is part of China, and the People's Republic of China is the sole legitimate representative of China. Sure, Nancy Pelosi classified as troublemaker-in-chief in the world.
Legitimacy is a relative term in many ways. What China is doing might not be considered legitimate by the Taiwanese. But having said that, in your reading, do you see, even if we're talking about US coming to Taiwan's rescue or other countries coming to Taiwan's rescue, politically, do you see Biden or any other country at this point in time, at this juncture, being able to, in their home constituency, being allowed to enter any war of any kind in any part of the world? Because we actually saw that happen in Ukraine, where they did not enter. Could that replicate itself with Taiwan as well?
The United States does not dare to enter into Ukraine to fight against the Russians. Why? Because they know for sure, and President Biden said that for the record, that a direct war between the United States and Russia will be World War III. Now, how can anyone expect that a direct war between the United States and China, which is a very, very important nuclear weapon-armed country, will not lead to a third world war? No one will be that smart to reach that conclusion. I believe a war between China and the United States is completely out of question. It is not an option. Dr. Henry Kissinger said again and again that war is not an option between China and the United States. Why? Because these are two nuclear weapon-armed countries to their teeth. Any war between China and the United States will escalate right out of control into a nuclear war, and the mankind will look into the eyes of Armageddon. Do you think Washington or Beijing will want to take that risk? And do you think the United States will have the guts and have the capabilities and have the national determination to prevent the Chinese nation from becoming a reunited country? No, it's against the US policy of one China, because they recognize there is only one China. They recognize legally, they are bound by that they recognize Taiwan is part of China. You want them to commit acts of illogicality. They slap themselves in the face. They say, yes, we recognize there is only one China. Taiwan is part of the China. And then they say, we want to defend Taiwan from being reunited with China. Bring any teacher of logics to Washington, and he will really achieve great success in graduating them into good, high-quality students of logics. They are being illogicality now, and they have no authorization whatever to send U.S. soldiers and officers to fight for Taiwanese separatism. This is against the fundamental interest of the American people. I don't think the American soldiers or the generals or politicians, etc., will dare to commit that level of folly and stupidity.
So is this more bluff? Is this more bluster, where China says getting involved militarily would be stupidity and America will not do that? Now, despite China's warning to the United States not to play with fire, Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan, and this shows Chinese President Xi Jinping in rather poor light ahead of him seeking a third term to remain president for life. China says Taiwan will also have to face the music. For the latest, I want to cut across to Brian Ho, editor, New Blue magazine. He joins us from Taipei, Taiwan. Also with me is Andrew K.P. Leung, a China expert and strategist who joins us from Hong Kong. Brian, if I may come to you first, what's the latest on ground amidst reports that Chinese aircraft carriers Shandong and Liaoning are no longer at their bases either in Sanya or in Qingdao? Is Taiwan bracing to be surrounded from all sides for China's live fire intimidation tactics?
So there is not panic in the streets, actually, because Taiwanese have faced the threat of China for decades. And so these threats are not taken quite seriously. And are they worth taking seriously? That's another question. China has escalated with its live fire exercises. They intrude into Taiwan's sovereign territorial waters. They are closer to Taiwan than the live fire exercises that took place during the third Taiwan Straits crisis. Yeah. At the same time, when you look at China's military, does it actually even have the basic capacity to occupy Taiwan? It doesn't. It doesn't have enough boats to occupy Taiwan. That's referred to as lift capacity. You look at the military hardware it likes to show off, including its aircraft carriers. One of them is a former casino, literally. And so I think that this Chinese nationalism is out of control, and if that is dictating military logic, it is overriding rationality, and the consequences will be great for Taiwan, for China alike. Loss of life cuts across on both sides. The military science of invading an island is very difficult. The losses would be in the tens of thousands, in the hundreds of thousands. So there would be nothing good coming for China out of this, except the loss of many young lives. And so then, why then are Chinese nationalists, such as the previous speaker, saying that would be so easy? Because they are, in fact, it's them that is leading things to folly. So what is the issue here? What is the issue with having a diplomatic visit? And so this is one way in which the Pelosi visit has drawn Taiwan into a situation that is difficult to resolve. But what does China have to gain out of this?
Let me take this to Andrew and let's get a response on this. You're saying China does not have the military wherewithal and capability to mount an amphibious assault to take control of Taiwan. Andrew, the United States and Europe have both said there is no change in the one China policy. Why is China then using Nancy Pelosi's visit for making these extremely aggressive military maneuvers?
Well, the United States has been always saying that they are honoring the one China policy. But in fact, over the years, especially more recently, is pushing the envelope further and further, hollowing out the whole concept of the one country, one China policy, by creating more and more international elbow room for Taiwan to play. And also fielding more and more senior officials to visit Taiwan, and perhaps even cajoling Americans' allies to do the same, to treat Taiwan as if it was a separate country, while still playing lip service. Now, of course, the Taiwan unification is very much on the front of the China dream. But the fact remains that most of the Taiwanese people do not support unification. But again, according to the latest poll, most of the people do not want independence either. They want to maintain the status quo, which means that the situation of non-unification could last forever. But that would be anathema to China's main to the part of the China tree.
No, so does that mean that China is willing to use force that Taiwan says China doesn't have to do it, to reunite the country or occupy the country, as Taiwan puts it, using force? Brian, in the next 4 days, from the 4th to the 7th, will flights be grounded with Chinese threat of live missile firing in the seas around Taiwan? Ports likely to be blockaded over the next 4 days. Does Taiwan have effective countermeasures, if at all?
So that is a question, if Taiwan has an effective countermeasures. If you really look at it, pound for pound, obviously Taiwan would come off the worst. The question is, how much loss of life is China willing to accept for this irrational cause of annexing Taiwan, just for the sake of national pride, without actually thinking about the lives and livelihoods of contemporary, actually living, breathing young people today, whether you talk about Taiwan or China. All these claims then by China to care for Taiwan. I mean, oftentimes the discourse nowadays is clear the land, clear the people, keep the land. So then the question becomes, what would you do? What would China gain out of attacking random Taiwanese civilians? Attacking, for example, aircraft, that would not exactly help. Who perhaps would run into these Chinese naval vessels conducting drilling, fishing vessels. And China is recently trying to pressure fishing vessels through blocking imports from China. Fish, of grouper, other kinds of fish, yes. A way to economically pressure them in order to comply with China's will. So what do you gain out of attacking them? So if China wants to move to indiscriminately attacking civilian populations, that's not going to win over Taiwanese either.
Okay. Andrew, China playing this very dangerous game of brinkmanship. Blockade Taiwan today, China could be blockaded in the Malacca Straits tomorrow. Is China prepared for this escalation?
Well, of course, China has never renounced the use of force if Taiwan dares to declare formal independence, or if the United States dares to support formal independence. But of course, the preferred option for China is peaceful unification. But of course, it would take a long time for the situation to happen. But I think that it is now the United States seems to be playing a dangerous game, trying to hollow out the one China policy by promoting the kind of pro-independence stance of Taiwanese politics. But at the end of the day, one has to ask why Nancy Pelosi is doing it, and why Biden administration seems to be supporting this kind of provocative move. The thing is that both Nancy Pelosi and Biden are facing the prospect of the midterm elections, and Nancy may risk losing her gavel as Speaker of the House. So I think that they just want to showcase that they are strong on China. They want to promote this kind of anti-China stance, and that's a very dangerous game.
Okay. So why would China help Nancy Pelosi win elections, midterm elections, by painting itself in a corner or increasing this rhetoric when both the United States and Europe are saying there is no change in the one China policy? But Brian, China is clearly saying they will not wait indefinitely for reunification, or as Taiwan puts it, occupation of Taiwan's territory. The timelines, according to some reports, are being shrunk. No longer 30 years from now. It could well happen in the next 18 to 24 months. Does that mean a war is on the horizon?
So it shows a shifting timeline, as one was seized with the claim that Hong Kong would remain unchained for 50 years. It did not prove to be the case. It's also significant to note that there is not actually agreement between the US and China. One China policy is not the same as China's one China principle, but China frequently conflates the two and tries to depict it that way in order to mislead, to make it seem as though somehow it's the US in the wrong. But then the question is, does Mike Trump right in this case? And that's the question. Why is China then willing to engage in such activity? Where's the benefit for China here? For example, does China want Taiwanese semiconductors? You're not going to get that if you wipe out Taiwan's infrastructure and destroy the know-how that of the Taiwanese people that know how to produce advanced technology. That is not logical. And so the danger here is of acting illogically. But then why is the U.S. playing with fire? I mean, there's not agreement with Biden and Pelosi. I mean, anyone paying attention to American politics should know this. I have no idea in what world the two are in agreement on this when this is dragged out for literally weeks, that the two do not agree on this.
Okay. Brian, for joining me here on this India First special, many thanks. We will be reporting on what happens in Taiwan starting tomorrow. From the 4th to the 7th, these military drills are to be carried out. Live fire exercises. Taiwan is actually being surrounded on all sides by China. Their ships, their submarines, their aircraft carriers, their fighter jets, and live firing drill will take place. So these military drills, to trade bans, to jet fighters flying close to the island. China has taken multiple measures against China to oppose US Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit. Beijing will now be holding joint military operations, including maritime and air drills around Taiwan, including live firing exercises, blockading ports and airports. We bring you this report.
China's military is in war mode over Taiwan, and we mean that literally. With Beijing's belligerent bluff being called out by the successful stopover in Taiwan by US House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, the military ball is now in China's court. And the country is doing everything it can to at least seem like it meant business. As declared shortly after Speaker Pelosi had arrived on Tuesday night in Taipei, China will kick off a series of live naval firing drills literally all around Taiwan starting tomorrow. China's Eastern Theater Command will hold these joint military operations around Taiwan with naval and air drills in the north, southwest and southeast of the island. The drills will involve Chinese Navy destroyers and frigates as well as combat aircraft. With live missiles and ammunition to be used, fears have escalated that even a tiny error could trigger a bigger flashpoint in the region. In fact, China has already begun long-range artillery firing in the Taiwan Strait and conventional missile test firing in sea regions east of the Taiwan island. The explicit muscle flexing by China is fully in keeping with the country's sustained grey zone campaign of intimidatory military tactics against Taiwan, short of an actual all-out attack. The Chinese drills are designed as psychological warfare, aimed at grinding down and wearing out Taiwan's defenses, imposing fatigue on its military and sensor networks. With China repeatedly warning of resolute military action and grave consequences for both the US and Taiwan for Pelosi's visit, the world waits to see what Beijing will do. Bureau Report, India Today.
The question remains, will this escalation lead to a conflict, or are these games, mind games, that China is playing more for its domestic audience, with Chinese President Xi Jinping seeking an unprecedented third term to remain president for life in China? That is all I have for you on India First this evening. Many thanks for watching.